in the same way it was with Jill, Michelle and I had. And then I'm just giving her away. But I knew that this was what we had worked for throughout their whole life.
Yeah, I see Ben over here, though, nodding his head, like, thinking about this. He's like, wow, you know, master burper.
And hey, Ben, you've got to keep up with the tradition, because that was the main advice that I remember Jim Bob giving Josh was, Mama takes care of the north end, Daddy takes care of the south end, and it's
everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Welcome back to my channel. I said that already. Oh my goodness, today has been one of those days. I'm gonna apologize. This video is coming out later than normal, and honestly, I have had so many like fires happen at my house, not like literal ones, but just minor issues that required my attention, and it's been very busy for my husband and I. So I'm glad that I work from home, but at times it's like, could more than one mess happen in one day? Yeah, that's my story. So I hope you're having a wonderful day. I wanted to speak with you a little bit about the fallout that's happening with Jinger Duggar's book that she announced yesterday, and a new article that is published by The Sun about Amy Duggar and how she was interviewed by HSI about her cousin Josh Duggar, which I had not heard before. So that was some tea that I didn't know that we needed to know. Welcome to the Duggar family fallout continues, and the Duggar family drama and the Duggar family probe by the HSI continues. Before we jump into today's topic, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you like this video. Also, I'm getting pretty close to my goal of hitting 300,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It's free on the way out. And leave some comments if you have something to say. So let's start with this first. So Jinger Duggar announced her new book on Instagram and in a video on YouTube yesterday.
This has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I think it's the most important. I've written a book. It's called Becoming Free Indeed, and it is my story, my journey of disentangling faith from fear.
Yesterday, I did a sort of recap of what her video said and why I felt like this video was Jinger speaking to mainly her siblings, maybe as well as other people that have left, that are still in the IBLP and might want to leave. And I stated that the fact that she called out Bill Gothard would be a huge problem, along with the fact that she called out directly the Institute in Basic Life Principles.
For an organization called Institute in Basic Life Principles. While there, I saw dozens of people I'd grown up with, friends who, like me, had come to Big Sandy every year to sit under the teachings from a man named Bill Gothard.
In her video, she specifically said, I went to a family conference in Big Sandy or something. No, I went to a conference at Big Sandy for the Institute in Basic Life Principles. I noticed that people that normally would be there were gone, and I was wondering what happened. I started to do my own research, yada, yada, yada. Here we are today, and now she's writing a book about, you know, the fact that this theology has hurt people, including herself, and she promised never before told stories like behind the scenes situations that happened at her house while she was growing up, while the cameras were there, but the cameras never caught. And so she says it's not going to be a tell-all, but I said in my video yesterday that I don't expect it to be a tell-all, because when you discuss what's happening in an IBLP home, you don't really have to disparage. You just have to describe the way that you lived. And most survivors have stories that are just so sad. And when you hear about how scared and fearful kids grow up under this, and how, you know, they feel like they didn't get a good education, they dealt with a lot of like stress and anxiety because they never felt like they were good enough. And there was no time for questions. So if you questioned anything, it was just like, no, you have to blindly obey. So critical thinking is important, which is why she said to her siblings or people that it's necessary and a good thing to question what it is that you learn, okay? And why you should, what you've learned, and you should understand, like, is this the truth? Let me look at the book. Let me evaluate other options. Let me think outside of this insular box, okay? So after she put out the video, she posted a few links on her Instagram, and I was like, all right, let's see who from the family actually likes the video, right? Who is going to comment and who likes them. She posted 3 separate posts, and obviously she is doing a lot of like pre-sales publicity right now. So she's, you know, ramping up to sell. I did ask her a question. If on the second post that she posted, I did ask a question if there's going to be any resources offered to IBLP survivors in the book, like if she'll have suggestions for survivors on anything that she might have used. She didn't respond, but I still would love to know that from her, if she has any plans to have resources available. I also would love to know if she plans to use any of the profits for this to help other people potentially leave, or what, you know, what the goal is here. There's a lot of people that have had some concerns about her continuously like putting all these books out. Like, is she doing this genuinely? Is this because there's all these documentaries come out? You know, there's literally been some survivors in my comments from the IBLP that are like, yes, I really like this. And then other survivors that are like, it's too soon, or I don't like that Jeremy, his church, is involved in this. You know, there's always going to be people that have criticism. So we're applauding her first step out, and we'll see how this goes. And I will be reading the book and reviewing it on this channel. So if you have questions, or you're doubting like if you should buy it, we will review it in total on this channel. So let's talk about what family members said anything and who didn't, because it's pretty shocking. And I told you that she'll get shunned, and it's already starting. Now, people want to know, like, what is the evidence of shunning? It's going to be very subtle, and you're probably not going to see it, but it's going to become part of engagement on her posts. If you noticed with Jill, not a lot of her siblings like her posts anymore. They don't post pictures with Jill. They don't comment on her posts very frequently, only like a few. For the most part, anything that Jill puts out is very much ignored by everyone in the family because she has been labeled dangerous. Now, because Jinger is speaking out against the IBLP and threatens how Jim Bob controls his kids, she's going to be labeled dangerous. There's nothing more dangerous to a narcissist and a cult than the truth. And she wants to tell the truth, at least hers, right? So when I looked at the middle post, which says, I've written a book called Becoming Free Indeed. This is a book about my spiritual journey, a journey of disentangling truth from error. In it, I share stories from my life, stories that nobody saw while the TV cameras were rolling, stories of fear and uncertainty, but also of discovery and hope. My prayer is that it will encourage you on your own journey. And then she's wanted you to watch the video. And so Amy Rochelle King, who is Amy Duggar, said, I love that you're speaking your truth. I'll always support you and love you. Amy said, I love that you're speaking your truth. I'll always support you and love you. Jill said, I'm proud of you, sis, and following God's leading in your life. Look forward to reading this book. Deanna said, Jinger, I'm so very proud of you, taking a stand for the truth. You and Jeremy are in my prayers. So it was 3 family members that made comments. Now, there was some friends like Carissa Holt, Jonathan Hartono, some other friends that I noted by name that don't have names that you would know. The Hartonos have appeared on 19 Kids and Counting. But some other friends that you might not know who they are that made comments. So there was definitely a reception from people that have left, that I know have left, but from people that are still in, there was nothing. So who liked her post was Deanna Duggar, Jill Dillard, Carlin Bates, Tori Roloff, and Joy Forsythe. So Joy liked the post but did not comment. So you have 3 family members that have been already shunned or have cut off Jim Bob that are making comments. Jill, and Amy, and her mom, Deanna. Jill and Amy are already out of the picture. Like, Jill has been labeled dangerous for years. It's been since like 2017. And she and Derek have been out of the drama for years now. Like, they moved, and she really has disconnected. It's affected her relationships with her siblings, who she deeply cares about. I know that. But when people don't want to be saved, or they don't want to see the truth, they'll be very resistant. And it's really hard for people to leave, because you have to remember that if they're going to wake up and see what they were told is a lie, they have to reevaluate their entire life and realize that everything they were taught growing up was false. And it messes with people's self-identity. And then you start to question, like, why would my parents do this to me? Why would they teach this to us? Why would people teach this to children? There's lots of guilt about, things you might have done to other people. There's shame for some of the things that have happened to you under those teachings. There's anger. And then there's this complete lack of, who am I if I'm going to leave? Her siblings would have to look at all of that. Then they would have to consider, my dad is going to cut me off. My financial life is going to change. I'm going to lose family and friends. So it's a lot. And that's why so frequently people don't leave, because they lose everything. But you can get through this on the other side. I mean, I've gone through my own deconstruction. My deconstruction like really peaked in my late 30s. And then I feel like I'm still deconstructing a lot of what I learned, but it's just an ongoing everyday process of trying to unravel your life from the faith that you grew up in, right? So she's getting praised by the people that are shunned, but she's not getting praised by the people that are still in. Carlin Bates didn't really say anything. She did like the post. I don't know where Carlin stands. I don't think she's still in the IBLP right now, IBLP, but I know that like Esther Bates liked it, and Nathan Bates and Esther are still involved, as far as I know. The Bates family is heavily involved in the group. So the shunning has already started, and her brothers are very unlikely to comment, because all of the brothers, again, are still involved with this group. Not a single one of them has left the group, as far as I know. They were down in Big Sandy for the most recent conference, and if they were to speak out and say, I'm so glad you're doing this, and their dad saw it, they would be shunned. Now, I thought what was most telling is that Jessa didn't say anything, even though Jessa and Ben are not a part of this specific movement anymore, per se. It would be very unlikely for Jessa to say anything negative about them publicly, because she would lose her parents as a support system if she did. And she's more dependent on them than I think others are, because her husband is a pastor of a pretty small church, and he doesn't make a lot of money, whereas Jinger and Jeremy are in a different financial position. So Jessa, this could cause a rift between Jessa and Jinger for sure, especially if Jim Bob is involved. The best way to combat a narcissistic parent is for the kids to unite and bond together against the parent. But unfortunately, narcissistic parents will do triangulation and pin the kids against each other so that they can't bond. And then they have trauma bonds, and there's just a million reasons why it's hard to break free. It's difficult to just say it's like, okay, this is going to be the one thing. Now, someone in my comments yesterday did say that they think that this is her attempt to try to free the kids. And then once this doesn't work, she'll have to resign herself to the fact that nothing she says or does is going to change them from leaving, which I believe is where Jill is. She knows that nothing she says and does is going to change the fact. And at that point, Jinger might become more emboldened to speak out. She has to be at a point where she's going to give up on that relationship and say, okay, I've tried what I need to try. I'm moving on. Now that we've covered everything that happened with the shunning that's starting with Jinger, let's talk about Amy. So she recently did an interview with The Sun, and they're releasing it bit by bit. And many of you have asked, like, why is Amy continuing to speak out? Why does she keep seeking out these interviews? And, she was silenced for a very long time through an NDA by her uncle in the network. When the show was canceled, the NDA effectively dissolved. And so she has her voice back, and I think it's unfair for anyone to assume that it's about clout chasing. It's just, you know, when you've not had a chance to speak or been afraid to speak and then you finally can speak, it's very liberating. And I think being so stifled behind that NDA has made her want to use her voice in a way to share the truth that she knows. So Amy, in an interview with the Sun, said that the Department of Homeland Security knocked at her door in Springdale shortly before his arrest, Josh's arrest, in April of 2021. So Amy has never revealed this part. I had not known about this, and I've had numerous conversations with Amy over the years. So this is something she has kept very close to her chest. But apparently they came to her house while she was just in the shower and the doorbell rang. And she said that there was a group of federal agents standing before her and they were like, "Ma'am, are you Amy King?" And I told them I was. And then they said, "Can we ask you a few questions?" And I was like, "Sure. Can I dry my hair first?" And they said no. I let them in and they just sat there and just asked me questions about the family, whether I knew anything, and I was just blown away. She said, "I wasn't sure what they were asking me about, and so I was like, I don't know what you're getting at. Of course, they don't tell you because they're fishing for information." So I had nothing to honestly give them. I said, "I wish I could tell you more about whatever has happened, but I know nothing." And Amy's husband said, "The problem is we didn't know anything because we don't know what's going on in their life because we'd started to separate ourselves from them already." So once they showed up at her house and they want to know information about this and they're asking for questions about the family. And then I asked Amy, I reached out to her and I said, like, did they ask you, there was this one part of the trial where they were talking about this document that was found on a thumb drive. Now, I want to be clear that the thumb drive document was this like red herring that Josh's attorneys brought up because it was found on a thumb drive that was connected to his computer. And they were trying to say that the thumb drive did it, you know? But there was this quiz on this thumb drive that had her name on it. And I asked her if it was about that, and she said no. She just said that she did whatever she could to help them in any way. She didn't have a lot of information. And she said she just provided like character information about Josh and the kind of person that he was. After this all happens, apparently she calls him and she said she received a confusing and dismissive response. And she said that in the interview, they basically said that like, oh, they just stopped by, or no, there's nothing really going on here. Like he was like, Jim Bob was making it seem to his sister and to his friends that like nothing was really happening. It was just like all fake news. And so she said she didn't find out the nature of everything until he was like arrested on April 29th. And this is what she said: "I think that's really where I tried to take a stand and told myself I'm 100% going in the opposite direction of this. I'm okay to speak my mind at this point. I'm holding nothing back." And she went on to say, "One of my friends told me that you can be your own person and you can stand up against this and you can do it in a way where you're not being mean to someone or disrespecting someone, but point out that this is wrong." And she said, because this is wrong in every definition, it was heartbreaking. It was tragic. And to be honest, I was downright pissed. I didn't realize that they came to her house and asked her questions, but I suppose they were trying to just contact as many people as possible that might have possible information about Josh. And something that I should note is that the Duggars posted a photograph on their Instagram like within a week of the raid at Josh's business. It was like this moment of deflection when the Duggars were like trying to like be like, "Don't look at the news, look at over here, we just saw Amy and the baby." And I remember when that happened, it just seemed so weird. And that's literally when I got blocked by the Duggars, because I asked them, I said, like, are you posting this and not going to respond to the questions about this raid? And that's the moment I got blocked by them. been blocked ever since, although some of their kids have unblocked me since. So, you know, they were using like anyone they could to try to deflect. Like they posted pictures in like, I don't know, California, and they went to like the, what do you call it? Silver Dollar City. Like they just wanted to make it seem like everything was normal when it clearly wasn't. So when you're being used that way by your aunt and uncle, and then like you are being brought into it and they're like telling you and asking you questions, and you're like, you know nothing, and then you ask clarification from your uncle and he tells you nothing, I would feel like so mad. She was already at a point where she was estranged or cutting ties with them because of everything that happened in 2015. And once the Duggars decide to like label someone dangerous, it really is like a shunning. I've talked to so many people that have been questioned and want answers from Jim Bob, and he just does not give them, or else he'll give a lie. And if you try to talk him out of something, like I talked to a friend of his that was friends with him for a long time and said, like, this is what they alleged, that there's no getting through to Jim Bob. Like if he has his mind made up and he decides that this is what it is, like there's nothing that you could say to him that will make him change his mind, and he will surround himself by people that fit the narrative that he wants to put out. And it's like just everyone around him is a yes man. And so it's what Jim Bob says goes, and that's cannot push back, you cannot ask questions, and you'll be gaslit, labeled dangerous, and then the lies, the slander, and just the ruining of people's like livelihoods happen. You see that he's already done, they've done that to Jill, they've done that to Amy and Deanna, you know, so it makes me sad that this is what happens, and it makes me even sadder that people continue to support people that are still inside. Like people always ask, like, should I still support the Duggars? I think you should support the ones that have gotten free from the IBLP and the ones that are independent from Jim Bob. I think that if you are supporting the ones that are still under his thumb, you're basically enabling him and his like narcissistic control of his children. And it's sad, you know, it's a family problem that they have. It's not just Josh. And so in my opinion, this isn't going to be the end of the story for the Duggars. And I want to be clear, like that's not my opinion. I've heard this from so many other people. Even Amy says she doesn't think this is the end of it. Deanna has told me she doesn't think this is the end of it. Friends have said they don't think this is the end of it. I don't know what else will happen, but they feel like more will come in time. So Amy was visited by HSI, and her Duggar dad, Jim Bob, dismissed her, and that's when she said she had enough. And that's why she's speaking out, because of the position that she ended up in. And this is wrong. So if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? So you might not always love her, but if she's going to stand up against the evils that are happening, I say keep going. The more voices that speak out, the better. The more voices that have the same stories, the better, because it shows a clear picture of who they are that the public can't ignore, but that hopefully if some kids get access to the internet and they see that, they'll know that it's not just one person this is happening to, it's happening to a lot. And you can only hope that some of these other kids get freed at some point. So what are your thoughts about the shunning, Amy getting questioned by the HSI? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.